all want to make money by doing something we love. If you could turn your hobby into your job, you'd never work a day in your life, right? Welcome to Hobby Hustle, the ultimate podcast where collecting passion and business collide. Now, here's your host, Zach Nygett.
What is going on, guys? Welcome to episode 5 of Hobby Hustle. First and foremost, I want to say thank you so much for all the support, the kind words, the encouragement. This is something that I'm doing out of a passion project, just like my guests. And, I just can't thank you guys enough for all this support you're showing me. So obviously, if you're liking this, please like, subscribe, please share with your friends, help spread the word, because I'd love to continue bringing these episodes and continue to have on awesome guests. With that being said, today I'm really excited. We have a guest who is a LA native and has been a collector his whole life, but he's taken sort of a different approach and path from our other guests to date. His focus has been in the sports content space and recently shifted over to collectibles. He held multiple positions with NASCAR, including head of content. He was the general manager of The Athletic before being acquired by the New York Times in 2022. And he's currently the CEO of Mantel, a new startup social media community that brings together collectors of all items. You can find Mantel on onmantel.com or on social at onmantel. I'm honored to welcome a friend, sports geek, and passionate collector, Evan Parker, to the show. Evan, what is going on, man? How are you today?
Zach, man, thanks for having me. It's fun to have a conversation, and now other people, I guess, will listen.
Yes, hopefully other people will listen to us. That is the goal, and it's an honor to have you, on with me. So I know you're an LA guy and a big Dodgers fan. So let's get some general thoughts on how it's going so far. What do you think of the season?
I've been conditioned. I know people who root for other teams might immediately think I'm crazy or a jerk for saying this, but I'm just like conditioned over the lifetime of being a Dodgers fan to get incredibly excited for a while during the season and then disappointed towards the end. And I know I'm still lucky. I've seen a couple World Series in my lifetime, but I mean, the team's unbelievably fun to watch. And what Ohtani's doing, I kind of hope in some weird way that they just keep him, on the offensive side and don't let him get injured again, because there are every single pitcher's elbow is going. It seems like, just nobody's safe out there. And what he's doing behind the plate is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to think. And I think maybe some people forget that, especially this season, right? That like he's an incredible pitcher too.
Incredible.
And yet he's just batting and he's just dominating.
And he's so much fun to watch, and just the way that he approaches the game and the joy that he seems to have, it's really cool. I mean, he was just down the street for a number of years in Anaheim playing for the Angels, and I got to see him on occasion when he either like the Freeway Series or local TV. But I didn't have a true appreciation for just how incredible he is when he gets up to the plate until I've been able to watch way more games than I'd care to admit. He's just a lot of fun. I mean, I want to see him pitch in Dodger blue. I think it'd be really cool. But my number one thing is just keep the guy in the field as much as humanly possible, because I think he's just unbelievably fun to watch, and he's really incredible.
Yeah, he's a special talent for sure. So hey, the way I like to sort of start a lot of these is by learning a little bit about your origins, right? And especially on the collecting side. So I'd love you to let us know about what are your sort of first memories of collecting and how you got started?
You always hear people talk about the collecting gene. I feel like it exists, but it's not necessarily hereditary. I have it. I've had it since I was a kid, but nobody else in my family has it. My dad grew up in the 1950s in New York, and had he had even a little bit of a collecting gene, I might be sitting on some, 52 top Mantel card. And instead, I have nothing. I have not one single card, nothing from his childhood that is worth anything other than, sentimental value. Guy doesn't collect, doesn't care about it. And he's a sports nut, and so I don't know that it's a gene that necessarily carries, but I've had it since I can remember. I grew up with two brothers, and I think our way of connecting with sports as major sports fans was going and buying packs of cards. And we grew up in the late 80s, early 90s in LA. The Dodgers won the World Series. Like the end of the 80s, they were dominant. The Lakers were dominant in the end of the 80s. In the early 90s, they were pretty good before Magic retired and everything. And so I got to see some really incredible teams. And we had it wasn't a card shop. It was a gift/pharmacy shop / had cards and candy. It's one of those things that doesn't exist anymore. It kind of had a little bit of everything, but nothing was very good.
Yeah.
And we would go there. They didn't sell singles. All they sold were packs of cards. And if we had a couple of bucks from allowance, that's where we ended up going. And we kind of pooled our money together and bought cards. And that's kind of how it started for me. And cards from a very early age. I got my first watch. It was $250. I got it when I was 13. I haven't had a day go by that I haven't worn a watch since. It's just something that I really get attached to and excited by. I guess these beautiful objects, things with cool stories, things that kind of call to mind either nostalgia or they just like bring stories to life in a physical way. And so it's been a part of my life since I can remember.
That's awesome. And to your point, it's funny. I was just talking to my kids about like, we called them like 5 and dime stores, right? But the corner shop that had, like you said, it was like pharmacy, it was candy. Candy was like 5-10 cents, right? That was awesome.
Right.
And you get your cards. I remember getting basketball, baseball, and even garbage pail kids, which at the time were like the bomb. So,
yeah, that's where we go. You take $10 or whatever, and you walk away with 3 packs of cards and some Sour Patch Kids or whatever it was, and that's a hell of a day for an 8-year-old.
Heck yeah, well, that was a good day. Yeah, today maybe $10 gets you 1 pack, right? If you can find it, that's cool. So I guess I'm curious. You mentioned some watches, you mentioned some cards. Is there sort of one item that maybe is the most unusual or unexpected in your collection?
I don't know about unusual or unexpected. I think I'm somebody who's I don't focus in collecting, and I know I've seen other guests that you've had on that are hardcore Adam Gray basketball cards. Like the guy knows every single thing about basketball cards, and I don't know what else he has in his collection, but that's something he's really focused on. I kind of dabble, so I've got a bunch of watches, I've got a lot of cards, I've got toys, I've got comics. The car that I drive every day is like a quasi collectible. It's my daily driver. It's the only car I have, but rather than getting a new car that can do the exact same thing as a car from the 80s, I went with the 80s car because it just brings a little bit more joy. So like my daily driver is it's kind of like a diplomat's car. I drive a Mercedes 300 SE. It's like not the most practical thing in the world, but it's a tank. It gets me everywhere I need to go. I love looking at it. I have more fun driving this. I don't have kids, so I don't have to worry about airbags and things like that. I have more fun driving that than any car that I've been in. Doesn't matter if it's a sports car, a truck, whatever. It's the most fun I've ever had behind the wheel.
That's awesome. Yeah, my wife, she just had to have this 1999 Jeep that's all like lifted. We use it for off-roading. It's super fun. But it's totally inefficient. It doesn't go fast, but the smile that gets put on her face when she gets into it is worth, every penny of keeping the thing around. So I get it.
Yeah. And this one, it has some collectability. I think, people who are around our age who grew up and saw people driving, late 80s cars or early 90s cars, like there's a little bit of that they're starting to become collectible. But I bought this thing for less than I would have spent on like a 2003 Prius, right? Like I got something that brings me all this joy. It's unique. It stands out on the road. It's cool. It's comfortable. I got a tape deck instead of a CD player. I don't have a backup camera. Like I've got no technology at all in the car. It's you slam the door and like the whole neighborhood can hear it. But I got it for pennies compared to what any car, any practical car really would cost. And that's some of the joy. And I think part of the fun of collecting is kind of the hunt and saying, all right, this is something that's interesting. Let me just go figure out how I can kind of game the system. How can I go get something that I really love and justify it in some way?
I love that. So speaking of unique, you have a really interesting career path that's been in sports, but not necessarily the traditional collecting sense. Yeah. So I guess I'm curious, can you sort of give the audience a little bit of info about your journey?
Sure. Yeah. So, I went to school to be a journalist, a sports journalist. That was the goal. And for 3 years in school, I truly believed I was going to be a play-by-play guy calling NBA games. And that's everything I spent my time working on. Worked on at the radio station. I went to the University of Maryland, and I was there when the sports teams were great. And I got to travel around with the basketball team, with the football team. I had to learn lacrosse. I had to learn soccer, all these sports so I could cover them. And I really thought that was going to be my career. And as I got closer to graduation, I had this sort of wake-up call of like, I'm covering Maryland's basketball team when, it's like I got there. Juan Dixon was there. They won national championship. Like I got to see these things.
That was a great team.
Amazing. And for me to get back to that point, to be able to cover a game of that consequence could be my entire career hoping to finally get back to be able to go and cover Maryland's basketball game, right? Like that idea in my head of seeing all these other guys graduate before me who went to small towns around the country and kind of toiled away in minor league baseball and hockey and things like that. And I just didn't have the stomach for it just to get back to where I felt like I already was. And I got an internship that summer, now the Washington Commanders. I went to the practice facility on behalf of a radio station to go get some quotes. Joe Gibbs was the coach. And I just needed to get some quotes, put a recorder in front of his face and get some sound. And I brought my resume and I gave it to the PR guy, and they brought me on as an intern for my senior year. And that was my first idea that you can work in sports without being, I think, when you were a kid, it's like you got to be a player, a GM, or a broadcaster. Those are the only 3 jobs that exist in sports. And then I got to go to this facility and see that every single job under the sun, they've got doctors, they've got lawyers, they've got accountants, they've got operations people, and all, construction workers, whatever it is that you do, what your career is, you can do it in sports. And that was that first epiphany of that, I can make a career out of this, and it doesn't have to be me as a play-by-play guy. There's other ways for me to be able to get into the action. And I got lucky. I was able to get an internship after graduating with a PR firm that had a lot of sports and entertainment clients, and that led to a full-time job, and did that for 6 years. Xbox 360 was my first client. So I got to launch the 360 and be a part of that. It wasn't core sports, but it was
that was revolutionary at the time.
Oh, unbelievable. Unbelievable. And, for me as a 22-year-old guy who spent 4 years in college with, an Xbox and a PlayStation playing Madden with my friends, it was a dream come true. You couldn't tell me that there was a better job on earth than getting paid to be around video games all the time.
Yeah.
And I did that, for 6 years, and had an opportunity to move over to NASCAR. And NASCAR had an LA office that was doing sports and entertainment marketing. The basic idea was, how do we get the NASCAR drivers, the tracks, the storylines in front of non-NASCAR audiences? How do we broaden the sport and get them into pop culture and things like that? So I spent 3 years doing entertainment marketing for NASCAR, and then moved to Charlotte, North Carolina as an LA kid, moving to the South to work for NASCAR, and did brand marketing and partnership marketing. And then my last role with the company, I was there for 8 years in total. My last role was head of content. And so we had a production company, and we had a website with a bunch of journalists. We had our social channels. We had a design team, all these different functions that were in the content department. And I got to work with incredible creatives every day, just trying to bring NASCAR to life for a really broad global audience.
That's really cool. I guess I'm curious, so the content game, right? Obviously that's sort of a hot word these days, and you've been doing it for a while. How do you sort of measure success of some of the content initiatives that you guys were working on?
It always depended. I mean, we had, with our production company, a lot of it was revenue. Are we able to sell shows to networks and to, documentaries to film companies? Are we able to get, Fox and NBC, our partners, to pay us to do pieces of content? So that was from that side, it was a lot about that. You get ratings, and ratings are good because they help you then go and sell the next thing. And revenue was a really big piece of it. With social, it was about reaching as many eyeballs as humanly possible. How do we get NASCAR in front of the fan base, or the potential fan base, and grow the sport? And so it was thinking a lot about ways that we could create content that really could engage an audience. And the tough part with NASCAR was you had this traditional audience that had been there forever, and you had this kind of new audience, or an audience that you were trying to create or trying to cultivate. And how do you create content that's going to work for both and not alienate either? I actually think there's some, interesting analogies in the sports card space with sort of the old school sports card collector that has been doing it forever and goes out about it a certain way. And then with breaking and a lot of the things that have come up over the last 5 to 10 years, you can kind of see these two audiences, and how do you create content or interact with both without making either of them feel like, hey, this isn't for me. And that's what we were trying to do with NASCAR every day. And I think a lot of our programs succeeded, and some failed. Some people looked at it and said, hey, this ain't for me. And you just have to take the data and learn from it. It was a lot of taking a look at every piece of content we produced and figuring out, is there anything in here that'll tell us how to do a better job the next time? It wasn't just spraying and praying. It was really taking a look at the data. We had a whole team. All they did was analyze the data. And that really helped us make sure that every piece of content we created was at least slightly better than the one we did before.
That's awesome. And I think that's really interesting that you brought up the fact that there's maybe some parallels there, because definitely, if we relate this back to sports cards, there is for sure the old guard, right? And the old way. And, since probably the pandemic, realistically, right, there's been the shift in the types of content, in the demographics, both not only just with younger people, but also, minorities and women and all sorts of things. So there's definitely some parallels there.
There's that push and pull. And I think that, for the old guard, even though things are shifting and they can see content changing and maybe it doesn't feel like it's meant for them anymore, the thing we always tried to do at NASCAR and the thing we're trying to do at Mantel and just in the collectible space in general is impress upon people that if we don't continue to innovate, if we don't continue to get new people in and excited about these things, they're not going to be viable. They're going to go away. The investment will go away. The opportunity will go away. And even though there are things that you want to hold on to and the traditions and a lot of the stuff that you just never want to see die, if we don't try to figure out ways to get new eyeballs in, it just negatively impacts the experience, even for the old school collector. And I know that there's a lot of stuff, and I'm on a tangent now, but people worried about fanatics coming in and all the stuff they're doing. Is it good for the hobby or not? And the way I look at it, like, yeah, they're going to make mistakes. Not everything they're doing is how I would do it, but it has to be positive for them to be bringing new investment, new eyeballs, new blood into the collectibles world. And it'll only over time impact positively, I believe, the experience for everybody.
I'm with you. I think, there's something about honoring the past while continuing to innovate. So
Absolutely.
I think we're totally on the same page there. And I think those are really great points. I guess, as far as NASCAR goes, was there anything that sort of sticks out to you as like a really memorable project or event or campaign that you worked on?
Absolutely. I spent a year period in there working on partnerships, and we had Sprint as our main sponsor of the sport, the Sprint Cup, for a very long time. And when they left the sport, we had to replace them. And I got to work on that process of bringing in a new sponsor, and Monster Energy was the sponsor that we ended up being able to sign and everything. And the first race for Monster Energy, so it was the Daytona 500, kicks off the season. We'd been like busting our asses trying to get everything ready for this new partner and show them the best possible experience and get them excited about it, make them feel like they spent money in the right thing. And the winner of the race, of the Daytona 500, biggest race of the year, was Kurt Busch, who was driving the Monster Energy car. And that always, in my mind, even though there were ups and downs in that relationship in my time working on it, working so hard to get to this race, and then having the guy who wins the race, and he won.
Increase any pockets around?
I'm telling you, it was completely legit. He won the race, but for him to emerge in victory lane and see the smiles on the monster people, and I actually got it's not far from here. Like I got a helmet after the race.
Wow.
This is all the guys who started it.
That's so cool.
That's Kurt's signature, and Jimmy Johnson's on here, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. and all these guys. And so to get to work on a project like that, and even though not every day was great, and we had our struggles, to remember at least we had this moment where the biggest race in the sport, our partner was happy. Kurt Busch won. It felt like it was like preordained, like this was written by somebody Disney. Right. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So that's one that'll always kind of stick out.
That's really cool. Well, so you took, that NASCAR experience, you worked your way up to head of content, which is amazing. And you were able to transition then to becoming part of the Athletic and up to general manager. So I guess maybe tell us a little bit about that and maybe how some of your NASCAR experience was able to parlay that into the Athletic.
Yeah. So I'm married to a woman who works in sports too. And she, when I was at NASCAR, she worked for the Charlotte Hornets, and she got a call out of the blue from the Golden State Warriors, and they had an opportunity in their sales or the partnerships team. And they wanted to talk to her about it. And I had a nice long career at NASCAR, and she was now getting the call up from the Hornets, which is a fun team. Jordan ran it and everything. Like, as a basketball junkie, getting to be around Jordan, really cool. But the team, was never competitive when she was there. Still not competitive. And the Golden State Warriors, that had been on this incredible run, give her a call.
Okay.
All right, I'm following you. I'm quitting my job. I'm going to leave NASCAR, a place I've spent 8 years, work my way up to this position that I felt like if I wanted to, I could potentially do for the next 20 years and retire as an executive in NASCAR. I'm going to drop all that. And we're packing the dog and the cat in the car, and we're going to see what San Francisco is like. And it didn't hurt that I grew up in LA, and now I'm at least back in California and close to family and friends. And so I was looking for a job for the first time in a really long time. And through some connections I had working in the sports industry forever, I was able to get in touch with Alex Mather, Adam Hansman, who were the founders of The Athletic. And basically, they didn't really have a job necessarily that they had in mind, but I was coming from this content background. I'd done partnerships before. I'd done marketing before. I'd been a sports journalism major. So I had a lot of the things that they were looking for. They were kind of at that stage of the company where they were going from being really early stage, everything's really hectic, to saying, okay, if we want to get to where we need to go, we need to start bringing in some people who have been there and done that before. And it just timed out really well that I was looking for a job when they thought that they needed something else to add to the team, and they brought me on. And it was an insane ride. I was there for 4 years. COVID got in the way of a lot of it, right? I mean, like my probably favorite year of working in my career was that first year I was there when we were all in the office, and it felt like everything we were doing was the first time the company was doing it, and people were excited about it, and there was that kind of culture of like, hey, we're onto something. This can be really big. And then, COVID stopped all sports for, whatever, 3-4 months, which when you're a sports journalism company and everything you do is creating content around sports, there are no games. It has a pretty big impact on the business, but it was still an unbelievable ride. And I feel like, I'm biased about anything I do. I drink from the fire hose. I drink the Kool-Aid. Like I am all in, but I really believe even to this day that The Athletic creates the best sports content from a journalism standpoint in the world. And my job was essentially to do the dirty work so that the writers could just focus on telling the best stories. Like we will handle, you don't have to worry about X, Y, and Z. Like we'll have a team programming your content, handling social and doing design, and we'll handle partnerships and we'll handle the data and all this other stuff. So you can just go get out there and write the best possible story. And that was kind of my department's role, was just to take off a lot of the responsibility from the newsroom so that they could focus on the work and we could focus on the stuff that they didn't want to do, that would help make the journalism better. And for somebody who went to school to be a sports journalist, and I've still never done sports journalism as a career, to have a chance to just help the sports journalists have the best possible jobs and create the best possible content, pretty good consolation prize for not getting to become Vince Scully or Marv Albert.
Yeah. No, totally. I mean, what a cool story and what a cool transition. You went from one awesome job to another pretty amazing job. And I agree with you. I subscribe to The Athletic. This isn't some paid partnership or something. I love it. It's great content. And I think what's really cool about it is that you get both the national, but you also get this really deep, in-depth local stuff. And I get maybe talk to us a little bit sort of about maybe some of the strategies that you implemented, or at least what your vision was to like help make The Athletic, how cool and what it is today.
You hit the nail on the head. The business was built with local journalism in mind. So, it's actually built for people exactly like you. You live in Colorado, but you're a big Chicago sports fan. You're not going to be able to read about the Bulls or the Bears or the Cubs or the Blackhawks in the Denver Post. And Adam was from Cincinnati living in San Francisco. Alex was from Philadelphia living in San Francisco. And both of them felt like ESPN wasn't covering their teams. Unless their teams were the best, unless their team had the biggest names, they probably weren't going to get on SportsCenter very often. They weren't going to get on the homepage of ESPN.com very often. And the San Francisco Chronicle was certainly not going to be covering the Eagles or the Bengals or their teams. And so they wanted to create a much better way for them to get in-depth coverage of their teams, like they lived in the town that was covering where their teams were based. They got lucky. This was before I even joined. There was a big shift with Fox Sports moving away from written content. And so Fox looked at people like Ken Rosenthal, one of the best sports journalists on earth. This guy is incredible at what he does. And they looked at him and they said, you know what? We'd like you to keep doing TV for us. And so we want you to travel to all of our Fox baseball games, but we don't need you to write anymore. So if you want to write, just go do it somewhere else. So The Athletic scooped him up, and Stuart Mandel, who was covering college football, and Seth Davis, who had been doing college basketball and writing on CBS and stuff like that. They got all these really big names who they never could have afforded before. They didn't have to pay their entire salary. These guys were getting sent around the country on behalf of the television network. And The Athletic had to kind of just pay for the writing piece. And it allowed us to go from being a real local environment. Chicago was the first market. And so going from, people who were covering, just the Cubs or just the Bulls or whatever, to now all of a sudden you had Shams Charania, who's covering basketball on a national scale, and he's teaming up with the guys who are covering the team on the local level. And I think that was a huge unlock, because he had these big names, newsbreakers, who were getting scoops from the guy in the locker room, was feeding stuff back to them, and they were able to share information. And that's, when you think about like the sign stealing scandal that The Athletic broke with the Astros, that had to do with Ken Rosenthal hearing things. He had guys in the locker room hearing things. He had guys at the opposing teams who were hearing things. And they were able to bring all this together and do this bombshell reporting. And so it's worked incredibly well. I still read it every day now that it's with the New York Times. And I think that they've been able to take all the work that we did. And I don't feel like there's any loss of like touch and personality in the new world. I think they're doing an incredible job still.
Yeah. Again, yes, for sure. And that's interesting. And it's, right place, right time with a lot of this stuff, right? Like you said, like the opportunities present themselves where maybe, at the time is like sort of a younger startup. they wouldn't have been able to afford the big names, but it worked well and
Right.
worked in their favor. And that's really cool. I guess, a big part of obviously all that business model is the fans. So, maybe you could shed a little bit while you were there about, how you were able to engage with the fans and understand like their needs and preferences for sort of the type of content they wanted.
I think one of the elements that the Athletic did really well, really early on was the data behind everything. And so our writers had a dashboard where they could see every piece of content that they wrote and how many people subscribed to it, how many people read it, how long were people reading it for, all these different pieces of information that the newspapers were hiding from them. I think the newspapers looked at that and said, we don't want to give you this ammo because it's going to negatively impact us in salary negotiations, or it gives you more power as the writer. And we looked at it and said, we want you to have every single piece of data possible so you can write better stuff. And it led to a lot. We had a content analytics department, and they spent all day, every day, analyzing every piece of content that we produced and figuring out, are there any connections? Can we replicate this idea over here? Can we take this element and bring it onto this side? And so an example of that is, you'd have one NFL reporter do a projection for the 52-man roster. Here's who I think is going to make it onto the roster. And you see a spike. A lot of people, whoever, it's Deshaun Reed with the Raiders, and all of a sudden that thing spikes. And that led to us saying, oh, there's something interesting. Why don't we see if Jordan Rodriguez with the Rams can go do it, or Daniel Porter with the Chargers can do it? And so from that little element, we now all of a sudden have multiple teams. We're doing that exact same thing. And if you see enough spikes, you go to the NBA and you say, hey, Jovan, the Lakers reporter, this worked over here. What's the NBA equivalent of it? Can you go do that? And we were able to take the data that we got from one story or one league and bring it across the entire newsroom and create content that people actually cared about. So I think that was a big unlock for us. And then we had our writers as kind of that tip of the spear. They were tweeting, they were in locker rooms, they were sharing stuff on social, they were sharing articles, and it just helped us get in front of an audience in a way that we never could have done on our own. I'd like to think that the social content that my team created helped and brought to life things in a different way. But the reality was, if you go out and hire the best journalists in the world and you kind of step out of the way and let them do their job, they engage sports fans better than you could ever do it. I think, it's not a regret, but I lament the fact that because of COVID, we didn't have as many in-person opportunities as I would have liked. The earlier days where there would be subscriber meetups, and you get a writer to open up a bar tab and say, hey, I'm going to be over here, and all these subscribers come and hang out. We just didn't do it as often as I would have liked. And, I think that that's something that it's harder to monetize. It's harder to kind of put data against and said, this helped us grow. So it sort of fell off the agenda when things got tough around the pandemic. But I think that these in-person opportunities, when you meet your community, when you can engage with them, getting a chance to go meet the writer that you care about. Again, Daniel Popper, the Chargers beat reporter, like, you're a big Chargers fan, you have an opportunity to talk to them. And maybe it's not like talking to Justin Herbert, but it's pretty damn close, right? You get to talk to the guy that gets to talk to Justin Herbert. And,
Sure.
and I think the more of those things that we were able to do, or I wish that we did more, I think it would have made a really big impact on the business.
Yeah, well, obviously the whole formula worked, right? You guys were acquired, a lot of that was, with your leadership, which is really cool. But I think all of this culmination of content and fan interaction sort of leads you to where you're at today, right? With Mantel. I've been on the platform. I'm really enjoying it and interacting with the group there. But maybe you could tell the audience a little bit more about, what Mantel is and sort of how that got started.
Absolutely. And I tell you all the time, I love that you're on the platform. You're on it all the time. If we have a leaderboard for anybody, we have a leaderboard of our most active contributors, and at Benchmob is in the top 3 always, and if not top 2, and I'm number 1 because
I'm never catching Evan.
I hope that's not the case. I'm like waiting for the day that somebody can catch up to me, but with it being the company that I'm trying to build here, I can't expect anybody to be on it quite as often as I am. But we're essentially building a social network for collectors. And the idea is that, community is so important to making collecting more fun and to connecting us to the things that we love and people who love the same things, information and access and all that kind of stuff. And the existing social networks are good for a lot of things, but they're not great for community. Instagram is really hard to have dialogue and conversation. If you have a massive account, you can't keep up with the comments. If you have a small account, nobody cares. X is kind of the same. Twitter, same sort of thing. We see on Reddit, it's anonymous and it's hard to have community when you don't know who you're dealing with and talking to. You have no idea what they're there for. When you go on these broad social networks, you got the entire internet at your disposal. So you've got politics and religion and war and health and all that stuff. And then you get to your little corner of sports cards. We just wanted to focus on the sports cards, on the collectibles, on the watches, on the stamps, on the coins. And can we build something that allows a collector to come into a safe space, a fun space, a space hopefully that we can keep trolls away from, and a place that you can go and interact with people about the things that you love and share the things that really matter to you. And we know that there are places that exist, in pockets. There's certainly a lot of Discord groups that have popped up and message boards and things like that. But I'd say our difference is that we're building for the collector. And so if you open up your own Discord server and it's for collectors, you can't actually create tools and functionality with Discord beyond what Discord is creating for you themselves. And message boards are the same thing. Most message boards that we use, people are licensing the platform, the technology from a company that's not building for a collector. So if we were just focused on one audience, what could we build for them that would be better than everything else and create a much richer experience? And that's what we're trying to do. So it's community, it's content, it's for collectors. And we're doing it for all collectible types. Our early focus is really heavy sports cards and sports memorabilia, because I come from the sports world and because it's really difficult to attract a global audience that loves everything. You kind of have to start in one area, and sports cards is what we've started. But we have people posting about sneakers and coins and currency. We've got stamps, we've got comic books, we've got cars, we've got watches. And I hope little by little, we'll be able to get people from all corners of the collectibles world to kind of find their people and build their own communities within Mantel.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. And I do want to stress that, like, while the focus might be on sports cards, it's not just about that. To your point, like, I've learned so many cool little tidbits from different collectors on there about comic book collections, about toys, about stamps, about, there's been some watch banter. There's definitely sneaker banter.
Mm-hmm.
But that stuff's all just so cool. And I think, one thing is collectors is, as you mentioned sort of at the start, like, a lot of us, while we do sometimes focus in on niches, like, we love all these different things, right? And to learn about them. And like you said, I'm focused primarily on sports trading cards, basketball, but I have Funko Pops and I like sneakers and I like all this other stuff. And so that your platform gives an opportunity for people not only to learn, but to interact, and it's fun to be able to go back and forth. And I think another really cool thing, because you guys are young and new and hungry, you guys are listening to the community and sort of what people want. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about some of the features you've rolled out, in the past couple months that, I think are really cool, but I'll let you share with the audience.
Yeah. And I certainly would love to hear if I miss anything that you think is cool, please.
Fair.
So we launched in mid-February. And so we've only been out for a couple of months, in kind of like tech parlance. It's the MVP, the minimal viable product. Like, we just got out what we could get out. And every day we're launching new things, and none of it's refined. So if you go on and you're like, oh, this isn't as clean as I want it to be, it's because we're trying to deliver as many new features and opportunities for our audience as possible, so we can figure out what people really want. Before you perfect anything, you want to know what people really love. And so we just are constantly trying to drop new things. It's a feed that will look and feel very familiar. If you've been on Reddit or Facebook or anything like that, it's a traditional feed. And with what we built, we have an ability to look up, but we have a card database for pricing. And so we partnered with Card Hedge. And if you're looking for the price of a card, you're able to look it up right in the platform. We built what we call the mantelpiece, which is not too dissimilar to like the shelving you have behind you with the things that you love the most. And so you're able to put cards or any item that you have in your collection up on your mantelpiece. So if I click on @benchmob, I want to be able to see the things that you care about, and I'm going to be able to see the cards that you have up on your mantelpiece, and people can interact with you based on that. For the national, we're gonna tweak it a little bit, and you're gonna be able to say if you have something for trade or something that you're looking for. And so if somebody is looking for, I don't know, like some 2003 LeBron rookie card or whatever, and you want to trade it, you can put it up on your mantelpiece. And if somebody's going to trade night at the national, they can find it there and they can figure out a way to interact with you. We don't have trading on the platform right now. We don't have DMs. Before we launch anything like that, it's really important to us that we figure out how to do it so people are not going to get scammed, that people are not going to get abused. We don't want to release anything too quickly that we're exposing our community members to anything that's not perfect. That said, if you have something on your mantelpiece and somebody else sees it and they want to interact with you, they can drop a message underneath the post and say, I'm going to be at trade night on night 2, at the national. I'm going to be wearing a a green Mantel jacket sitting at a back table, come find me. I would love to trade. And so that's something that we're going to be dropping pretty soon. We have polls and trivia that we put up every single day. And so there's just a lot of, we have news articles and video series that we're doing that you can watch on the platform. It's something that's been a lot of fun, that every day we kind of get to sit back and say, oh, hey, as collectors, and everybody on the team is a collector, what are the things that we're missing from our other platforms? What are the things that we wish we could do on Discord or on Instagram or on Twitter? And can we build it? And can we build it in a way that's better than what we can get on a forum or on Discord or anything like that? And I think we've hit on some things that feel like, hey, this could be really cool. And if we can nurture this a little bit more, people are going to love it. And there have been things that we've done that we spent time on that was, you know what, that was probably not the thing. Maybe that was a little bit of a waste of time. And that's the way it's going to go for the lifetime of this business, certainly, but also until we kind of nail what our audience is really looking for and what gets people coming back every single day.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. And those are all really good features. I think another one that you didn't mention is that you've allowed people to follow people now. So there's sort of like the main Mantel feed. When you log in, you see, anything that's relevant from a chronological standpoint that's been posted, but you're able to follow other people like you are on some other social media platforms and sort of segregate maybe the information that you're just more interested in about. And to your point about, trying to cover so many different niches within the collecting community, like maybe you follow someone who's more into watches or more into comics. So, you can sort of have both that experience. I think the other thing that neither of us have mentioned so far is the platform's free. So it's super easy to sign up. You can join. There's no money, and it's really great. And I've made some amazing relationships, including Evan from the platform. It's really been great. And I've been able to, connect with people outside of the platform and start to have awesome conversations. And, you mentioned the National. I'm looking forward to meeting up with some of the people from the Mantel community there. And I just think it's really cool. Also, the YouTube and on platform series that you're talking about with Buster is really fun. You guys have been able to land some big name guests. Aoki's been on there, and you just had DJ Ski and like so many other Rick from Pawn Stars. Like there's so many cool people on there. So if you haven't had a chance to watch that, definitely go do some searching and find those series, because they share some of their collection, and it's pretty incredible with what they come up with. So good job.
Yeah, I love you calling that out. I mean, the series Mantel Quality Stories is what we call it. Buster Shares is our host. Buster it runs social for us for Mantel. He is a massive collector, and he's just a really engaging, fun personality, and somebody who loves to kind of geek out and learn more about what people are into. And we've been able to bring on, as you said, Zach, some really cool guests. We've got a lot of really cool guests coming. I think Chloe Webb, who is a big Pokemon collector in the UK, is going to be on in the next couple of weeks. We've got Tyson Beck, the card artist, is going to be coming on. We've got Paul Scheer, the comedian, is coming on. Alexis Ohanian, who Mantel is really his brainchild. I mean, he's the one that originally came up with the idea with Brent Montgomery, who's the producer of the Golden Auctions Canadian Collectibles show. Alexis has been on. So a lot of people who collecting is at like the core of their being, either through their career or they're just big time collectors. If you think about like Aoki, collecting is not his business. It's been, in his business, but he's a DJ and a producer, but he is an insane collector. I mean, going through that episode and just seeing the guy lives in a 16,000 square foot house, and I didn't see a single inch of it as the camera was rolling around that didn't have a card, a piece of art, a toy, a statue. And what this episode, what the series is supposed to bring about is these items that mean something to the collector sitting across from you. And what I've found the most interesting to me is that oftentimes they're not the most valuable items. I mean, certainly, Aoki showed off a Banksy. Like, who the hell has a Banksy in their house, right? But he's
Aoki.
Aoki's got one in his living room. But, he also showed a bunch of things that weren't nearly as valuable. Gary Vaynerchuk's like showing toys that he got as a kid. He's got a helmet that's signed by the Jets Super Bowl winning team that he bought for $700 at a mall in the 90s. I'm sure it's worth more than $700 now, but that he didn't buy it because it was valuable. He got it because it meant something to him. And, every person who comes on the show shows off some things that are like, oh my God, I've never seen, that's an amazing piece. I can't believe it. That's museum quality. And then you see something that might not be worth $5, but has some sentimental value, connects them to their childhood or to a friend or to a moment. Alexis showed the first video game he ever played, and when he thinks about building Reddit and the career that he's had, he can kind of think back to the first video game he played and how it got him into technology. And he has, he's got a graded version of the video game. Like, I think that's, for me, at the end of the day, a lot of these items are not intrinsically valuable, right? Like they're cardboard and plastic and all these things. Like there's no value to any of this stuff other than the value that we ascribe through the storytelling, through the community, through our own love for these items. And one of the things that's made me the happiest working on this for the last year now is that I get to see people get incredibly passionate about things every single day that may not necessarily be things that are going to trend on social media. They may not be things that get a lot of people talking about them and writing about them. They may not be things I collect. And that's actually part of the cool thing is that you get to see people every day who love things that you're like, you know what, like that thing that you spent $1 on, $100 on, $1,000 on, $100,000 on doesn't do anything for me. But I love that you love it. I love your story behind it. I love the passion that you have for it. I actually had a conversation with a guy just today who's on the platform at Ticket History is his Ticker History, excuse me, is his handle. He's got a website that is about collecting stock certificates and, you know, like these paper certificates that are going back in history from different moments. He's got, you know, an Enron stock certificate or a Disney stock certificate. And some of them are worth 25, 50, $100. Like these aren't, you know, incredibly valuable things, but it's such an interesting area of collectibles that I knew nothing about until this guy posted on Mantel a few weeks ago. And you have that's like, oh my God, never even thought of that as being something that was, you know, you don't even think about stocks having certificates anymore because it's all done on computers. And of course that there are the ones that exist from, you know, 100 years ago that are highly collectible. And there's a niche community that loves this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really excited to see where the platform goes in terms of how it can branch out and, you know, create potentially sub communities or, you know, where all that sort of goes. I guess sort of in that vein, I'm curious, you know, in the world of collecting, sort of what are the trends that you're seeing and how do you have maybe ideas to cater to those?
I think people are getting more comfortable posting the stuff that they love and they're collecting online. I think that for a while it was either not done or it was anonymous. And so and I don't take any credit for it. I don't think Mantel is big enough yet to take credit here, but I think that you're seeing with Instagram in particular, people getting more comfortable sort of sharing their passions, being a little bit less worried about, hey, I've got, you know, whatever, all these people following me that followed me because of pictures of my dog and my family. And now I'm showing, you know, some sports card. I think people are getting more comfortable with that, which is only a good thing for what we're trying to build. I think there's more media attention to it. Collect with Darren Ravel just launched, or, you know, back in April, and they're doing really good storytelling and journalism around the collectible space. The Athletic, my old stomping grounds, just announced that they're hiring a collectibles writer. And so the more eyeballs that get put on the space, the more storytelling that goes behind it, the more investigative journalism that can you know, root out any corruption or bad actors, that can help tell the stories behind the people, that can do all, you know, do the things that you see in other sectors. I think only helps to legitimize the collecting world. Getting more eyeballs on it will be really powerful and popular. And so that's something that I'm really excited about, that just, I think more people are talking about collecting in a way. And if you look at, you know, the trends of the last couple of years, I know that there's, you know, there's a little bit of a stigma to people who got back into collecting during the pandemic. Like, oh, you weren't here before. But like those people, one of the good things about all these people coming back in is there's like this renewed energy and excitement. And the corporate world is paying attention, and not everything the corporate world does is great. But I think the added sort of eyeballs from a media standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint, King of Collectibles on Netflix is a good thing for the hobby. Whether or not you love Ken or love the items or whatever, it doesn't matter. The fact that people around the world are getting a chance to see sports memorabilia and cards and other collectibles on their television every day is only good for this thing that we love, to get more eyeballs on it and to help, you know, bring more innovation and more attention, I think, in a positive way.
I'm with you 100%. I mean, you know, I've been fortunate enough to be able to attend nationals for multiple years and just to see the growth there. As you said, you know, King of Collectibles, love it or hate it. It's doing amazing ratings, and it's really interesting. And it's cool because, you know, for my kids, it's something I can bond with them over, you know, like they enjoy watching it too and seeing that type of stuff. And I think that the big companies, you know, they are bringing more eyeballs. I mean, look at, you know, obviously the National is going to probably be huge this year, but then, you know, shortly after there's the Fanatics Fan Fest in New York, which is going to be a totally new event. And that's going to be, I think, pretty eye-opening for a lot of people with some of the stuff that they're doing. Yeah. And then you have all these other shows, but you just feel this energy and this momentum in the collectible space as a whole. And I think it's exciting for how you're positioned, because, you know, you really can leverage and potentially be, you know, the go-to social media network for all things collecting.
That's what we're really trying to do. I think we want to be the sort of the beginning and the end of your collecting journey every day. And so you wake up and you want to check the feed and see what other people are talking about, maybe do some research or learn a little bit, something about the collecting world. And then you might leave and, as you said, it's free. There's nothing to buy on the platform. We're not trying to peddle you a bunch of stuff. So you come on, you hang out with people, and maybe you're going to go to eBay or your local card shop or Sotheby's or wherever you go buy, and you're going to buy something there. You go to collect to read an article or whatever it is that you're going to do. And we want you to come back and show off the thing that you just got, or ask questions and say, what do you guys think about this? I saw this news break, or I'm looking at this item, and have that dialogue every day. And I think that the more people are paying attention to the space, the more interesting stuff will happen. I'm sure that there are going to be people who are going to listen to this and say, nothing good about fanatics coming in. There's nothing good about added eyeballs. There's nothing good about more media attention on this. It was great when it was just a few of us going to this thing and getting, you knew everybody, and I understand. I understand it. I don't agree with it, but I completely understand it. But I think that, the world is moving in a way, and there's more attention. Social media is becoming more and more pervasive every day. Our bet is that people at some point are going to get sick of being in the social networks where you're getting everything, and it becomes overwhelming, and you see a lot of stuff that you don't want to see. And people are going to seek out niche communities, and they're going to seek out people who love the things that they love. And so if that's the way things are going, let's have a hand in building the platform that we want. Let's not have it handed to us based on some big company deciding that collectibles is a great idea. Let's go, have a bunch of people who've never collected anything, go build something and say, hey, this is now your thing, take it or leave it. The thing that I tell everybody who ever comes to the platform is you have a hand in shaping what Mantel is and will become. If you have an idea, tell us about it. If there's something that we've done that you don't think is really good, give us that feedback. We didn't have that opportunity. And I've said this before, and I'm not comparing myself to Mark Zuckerberg or Jack Dorsey, or, we're not comparing Mantel to Twitter or Instagram, but none of us had an opportunity to tell the guys building Facebook what we wanted Facebook to be like. We didn't have that opportunity with Instagram or Twitter or Discord or anything like that. And with Mantel, we're early enough, we're new enough. All we care about is what the collector wants. And if the community tells us that something would be good to add, or this doesn't make sense, or you did it wrong or whatever, that's the kind of thing that we're seeking out every day. And I really hope that we can build something that people feel not just like it helps them and is fun, but like that they're a part of, that they really had a hand in shaping.
And I think you're seeing it already, because I can tell you, in the short time that the platform's been around and that I've been active on it, we're seeing some of that feedback that we're providing you as community members come to fruition. And you guys, make little tweaks or add new things like the poll, and there's stuff that's really cool that's constantly innovating. And so I do encourage people, like I said, it's totally free. You can go check it out. I'm going to put the shameless plug up here for you so people can find you, but it really is, it's awesome. And I think, an important part about what you mentioned too is that, I read all the time, like people use, I'm going to talk about cards specifically, but as an escape, right? They're like, I just love to lose myself, go sit down in my collection, thumb through it, organize it, do whatever, because it's like my private Zen mental space time. And I think that's so important. And I do think that Mantel is really starting to sort of offer that same thing, but also give some education piece. Because like you said, people aren't only just sharing, what they have in their collection and trying to teach people about that, but, we're sharing a ton of news too and stuff like, hey, I saw this article, really cool. Hey, I saw this video, really cool. Check this out. And like you said, people will go off platform, but hopefully they come back and, interact and share what's going on with that. And I really think it's, like I said, you're heading in the right direction, and I've got high hopes for where this thing goes.
I appreciate it. And I love having you on. I love that there are people on that know a lot more than I do. I don't profess to be an expert in actually anything, but certainly not in collectibles. And I've been collecting my entire life, but every single day, I'm a generalist in the way I collect. And every day I meet somebody who knows a lot more about part of what I love than I ever will. And I love that those people are starting to come onto Mantel. And if somebody has a question, how do I get a card graded? Or, I'm looking at this, is this a good value? Or I've never gotten into this side of collecting. Tell me more about it. Can you educate me on it? And there's likely going to be somebody on the platform who really knows what they're talking about and knows a lot about that subject and can help guide you and educate you or get you excited about something different. We're young and we're small, right? We don't have that many people on. I talk about the positivity on the platform all the time. You're not going to get the trolls. I understand part of that is because there aren't that many people on the platform. So luckily right now, the people who've sought this out are people who are looking for a better, more communal experience. Eventually, I hope we grow big enough that the trolls are going to come and we're going to have to figure out a way to keep them quiet or get them off the platform. But, I want to build something where experts are going to say, that's where I want to go. That's where I want to share my knowledge. I'm not going to tweet about this to a giant audience that doesn't care. I'm going to go to Mantel because I know everybody who's on that platform is interested in this stuff and is going to think about it differently and engage with me differently. And, we've got people on the platform who are true experts in their area of the collecting world. And I hope that we continue to bring more and more on because it's a great service for every other collector who's on there. And I think it's really cool for them to be able to share their expertise with people who actually care.
Totally. And I do think the positivity thing, like you said, whether that's long-term or not, you feel it, right? Like, you're not posting somebody and somebody else is making a bad comment. And listen, I don't want to sugarcoat things, right? That's just part of the internet. But so far, the Mantel community has been all positive, and it's been really cool because it's safe in the sense that like you put yourself out there and you don't feel like you're just going to get bombarded with hate, right? Like it's really positive and people are like, oh, it's so cool, or, show some love and things like that. So, again, kudos. I guess, what I'm curious is where do you sort of see this going, in the next 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, sort of what types of things do you envision Mantel becoming or features that you guys want to build?
Yeah. We want to be able to grow the audience first and foremost. That's the most important part. I've said this to you before, Zach, like I always get worried that we're asking our early members to do too much, to come on and always engage and create content and participate because they want to see this succeed, which I love, but I don't want anybody else to feel that responsibility but me. And so, I want to, over the next days, weeks, months, years, like we want to build this up to a lot of people so that everybody feels like when they come on, there's always activity. There's always something interesting people to interact with. We're working on some features now for the national. We're going to have a national specific feed. And so if you're at the show, if you're an exhibitor, if you're selling stuff, if you're a brand, if you're an attendee, you'll be able to post things that will be seen by other people who care about what's going on at the national. If you're at home and you've got FOMO, you can see all that kind of stuff in one place. And so we're really trying to build features that can make collecting easier and more fun. So that's first and foremost. We know we need to figure out trading. We know we need to figure out the marketplace. I don't want to compete with eBay. I don't want to compete with Fanatics. What we're trying to build is it's corny, but Switzerland for the hobby, right? We want to give people an ability to have a place that they can go that's not in competition with anybody else. This is the place that you can go and have your conversations and interact and enjoy collecting, but you may go somewhere else to go purchase. We want to make that easier. What can we build into Mantel that if you are going to go purchase something on a different platform, that you're able to find the things that you love on Mantel, and you can use us as for distribution for the things that you're going to sell, or a place to search for the things that you want to buy, or people to interact with that you can trade. So those are things that we're thinking about right now. More experts on the platform, as I said. I'd love to be able to build a way for experts to be able to help to be able to monetize their own expertise and to be able to use Mantel to generate their own clients and to build their businesses. So those are some of the things that we're looking for, and we're looking to build, and we want to be able to be to create more niche communities within Mantel. Right now, you've got the feed, you can follow the things that you care about and get that kind of stuff. But eventually, we should have a sports card channel that's just for sports cards and a watch channel that's just for watches. And I'd love a day in the not too distant future that if you're a collector of Pez dispensers or of stock certificates, that you can come on and you can create your own world within Mantel, that you're able to, almost like Discord, and you can spin something up that has the features that we've built and the community that we've cultivated, but it's all in one place. So instead of you having to go navigate and try to find these things in all these different places, you come to Mantel and I'm going to be able to go and engage with these communities in these different ways, use these features in these different ways, these tools in these different ways. I think one of the things that's happened in the last couple of years as more innovation has come into the collectible space is it's popped up in all these different places. I've got to go here to buy, here to track my inventory, here to for price checks, and here for this and here for that. And if we can just create a place that all those things can live, and you can link out to all these different experiences, I think it just makes collecting easier and more fun. You don't have to think about what you're doing anymore. You just wake up in the morning and go to Mantel, and I have everything I need right there. Even if it's all through partnerships and other things that we're going to be doing, again, Switzerland of the hobby. I want you to think about Mantel as a place that if it's tied to collecting, I know I can go there and find what I'm looking for.
I'm feeling like this is the new T-shirt and tagline: Switzerland for the hobby,
I
Mantel.
love it. I love it. Let's do it.
No, I think it's great, and those are all really valid points. Evan, this has been really inspiring and an awesome conversation, and I want to be respectful of your time and your day, and we appreciate you coming on and talking. But I'm just curious, sort of leaving the audience with, from your vast experience, both in content and now in collectibles, do you sort of have one tip you could tell aspiring collectors or entrepreneurs that you feel is sort of the golden rule of advice?
I don't know about golden rule of advice. I know, having listened to some of your podcasts already, I think that, the collect what you love is something that everybody feels and says. And so, that one first and foremost should be on the 10 commandments of collecting. That's number one, no matter what. But I think, and it comes from my background. Think about the story. What gets you excited? What's the story behind the item? It doesn't mean to say that if something's valuable, or if you think that, hey, I'm going to go buy this because I can flip it later, like, there's nothing wrong with that. But what's the story behind each of these things that really brings joy to you and makes it feel like this is something that is a positive for your life? Look, there are easier ways to spend your time and money than collecting, right? Like, this is, if you don't love it, if you're not in it because of the joy that it brings, then, you can go do other things. And so I think, just think about the story, think about why you're interested in this. What is it about each of these items that just gets your heart going in a certain way, makes you happy, makes you feel something, and focus on that emotion over anything else. Doesn't matter if somebody else likes what you like, doesn't matter what it's worth. None of that matters, as long as it brings some emotion into your life and you leave with these items, you just feel happier, better because of them. And the other thing I would say is, it doesn't matter if you own them, right? Like, that's something that I know a lot of people disagree with. I would love to divorce the word collecting from, like, having to physically have these things in your possession. And the reason why I say that is because I think that sometimes you get this sense that you don't own this thing, so you don't really have you can't talk about it. You're not an expert. Like, you don't get a say in this conversation. Reality is, like, you think about, like, the T206 Wagner. There are 40, 50 of these that exist on Earth. You and I are unlikely to ever own one. I've been lucky enough, and I think, Rob Petrozza over at Raleigh, I've had the chance to, like, hold on to one before, but I'm never going to own one. It doesn't mean I can't love it the same as somebody who does own one. It doesn't mean I can't appreciate it in the same way. And so I think, you can make yourself broke by feeling like you have to own every one of these things. You can be full of jealousy, seeing what other people have that you wish that you had. And I've learned as I've gotten older to take as much appreciation from seeing something that you have in your collection that I don't have. And instead of feeling jealousy, I have the feeling of, like, that's really cool. And I'm glad that somebody has that. I'm glad that brings them joy. And I think the more that collectors can be thinking about things as, like, I don't need to have this, I just need to be able to appreciate it. I need to see that it's out there. I need to be able to love it just the same. For me, that's brought me a lot of peace, because it's kept more money in my bank account than I'm not in debt as a result of it. And so that's just something that I would say to anybody, of, like, just, you don't have to own it. You don't have to leverage yourself all, like, just try to find the joy in these unbelievable items that exist, and we can appreciate they exist, even if you can't always have it in your house. You can't always touch it, can't always own it.
I love that. And I mean, I think that's so important, as a diehard MJ collector, it's very easy to get out of control really quick.
Totally.
And to your point, like, cheering on others and being happy for others to be able to acquire those things, I think, is so important. It actually just came up in one of the Discord servers I was on, but there was some jealousy going on over some pieces that people had, but it's like, a couple of guys like, what are we doing here? Like, the whole point of this Discord server is to, like, have each other's backs and, like, encourage each other and be cool. And, like, that's really, I think, an important message that should ring true. So I love
the Mantel.
that advice.
Send those guys over to Mantel. They'll see a positive way. I mean, it's honestly been a real benefit for me, at least, being on the platform, is that I can, like, help other people find the things that they love and then not feel like I had to buy them myself.
Yeah.
I think about piggy banks, one of, like the card artists that a lot of people on Mantel collect. And, every day that there's a drop and not everybody's able to get one, but there's, like, this communal feeling of, like, hey, I'm happy. Even if I didn't get one and you were able to pick one up, or somebody's asking about how to go get it. Like, we're all there to help each other out and help each other find the things that they love. And at the end of the day, somebody ends up with something, and I was able to help them get to whatever they were looking for as a collector. I feel like that's a win for me. I didn't have to buy anything, and I got the same dopamine effect because we won. We got this thing. you paid for it, you own it now, but like I still got to go down the rabbit hole. I still got to do the hunt. I still got to help, and I didn't have to spend any money. That's in some ways, it's like, it's for me, I'm like gaming the system because I get that same joy out of collecting without having to spend the money always.
Yep, totally. Like I said, I love that. I think it's so important. And I think it, tries to help keep people in perspective because you can get massively out of control quickly, depending upon what type of stuff you're collecting. Cool. Well, hey, before I let you go, I sort of want to, is there we talked about the National. This episode actually is going to air the Wednesday of the National, which is awesome.
Look at
that. So that's perfect. But, do you have anything going on in the National that you want to share with the audience, or sort of anything else that you're excited that's upcoming for Mantel?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, the Nationals in a lot of ways are coming out party for the wider sports card and memorabilia collector world. We're going to be at the trade nights, all 3 nights. As I said, we're going to have this feature on the platform for you to be able to say, here are the things that I have on my mantelpiece that I'm looking to trade, or the things that I want. So you can connect with other people at trade night and have hopefully a much better experience. So you're not walking around looking at all these tables aimlessly. Like, we want to make it easier for you to be a collector. So that's one of the things that we're doing. We're launching this feed that's only things for the National. Anything that's tagged with the National hashtag will all end up in the same place. And so you're going to be able to follow along, whether you're at the show or you're at home. You'll be able to see what's going on the ground floor and really feel like you're part of it. And so those are 2 things that we're trying to do at the National. We're also going to make sure, if you're there, like, reach out to us, come onto the platform. We're going to try to figure out a way to get all of our community members in the same place to hang out. And we've been talking about things that we can do together. And so there's going to be a lot of just fun stuff that we create when we're there. It's a huge, overwhelming experience, those shows. And so we're just going to do our best to interact with as many of our community members as possible and have a good time. So I'd encourage everybody to check out the site. And I know you have it up on the screen on mantel.com. It's free. Register for a username. I'd encourage you to put some things on your mantelpiece. One thing I can tell you is that, we don't have a mobile app. You don't have that same like icon on your phone all the time, push alerts. You have to take a little bit of time and effort to find us every day. Well, that's something we're trying to fix. But until we do fix it, post, get into our notification feed, get that rhythm going, come on every day and play our trivia game, or just do something to kind of get that build that habit. I can tell you, you're going to love it. You're going to, if you don't, you can give us feedback and we'll do our best to fix it. And we're on Mantel on all of our social channels. And I think we're creating really fun, really cool content. As I said, we got a lot of shows coming up that I mentioned with big names who are collectors and have different stories to tell, but also just highlighting really cool stuff every day that pops up on our platform. And you can learn a lot. You can have a lot of fun. You can meet other people who love the same stuff as you.
And just to clarify, you guys are going to be walking, like, you don't have a formal booth or anything?
No booths. We're going to be, I've got them right here. We've got these little packs. We're going to have, packs of cards in them, mystery packs. You don't know what you're going to get. QR code. In order to get one, you got to sign up for Mantel. But again, it's free. You don't have to do anything. You just sign up for the website, you get a username, get a free pack of cards. So we'll be walking around. You can find me. You'll see people walking around with the big M on hats or T-shirts or something like that with these packs. Seek us out. Talk to me on the show floor if you're there. We'd love to meet as many people as possible and hear what you're looking for out of a social network. If we're not building it, I want to know why. If you don't love it, I want to get that feedback. But we're going to be there for the show and doing our best to kind of navigate. We know it's going to be massive. We've been there as collectors before. We haven't been there as Mantel. And so this will be my first time at a card show that we have a company that we're really trying to kind of get out there. And it'll be an interesting experience. I'm going to see what it's like to be principally thinking about how to grow an audience versus grow my PC. But hopefully I can do a little bit of both while I'm in Cleveland.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And, obviously, as Evan said, like, come up to him. He's an amazing person. The rest of the team, I've had the opportunity to meet some of those guys. It's all really, really cool people. And you guys are all passionate collectors. And so it's cool to have the right people behind what I think can be a really cool platform. So I just want to say thank you, Evan. Like, this has been an amazing conversation. Your journey is really unique, and I'm excited for you and the team. I think you guys are creating a platform that has a powerful connection to be able to, connect passionate collectors and build long-term relationships too, which is such an important part. So I can't wait to see you at the National and what the future holds. So thank you. And I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, Zach. This was a lot of fun.
Be well, man.
You too.
Everyone out there, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Obviously, Evan, along with our other guests, are just another awesome story about how collecting passion has turned into a full-time business. So again, if you like the show, Please like, subscribe, share with your friends. And remember, keep hustling, keep collecting, and we'll see you next week on Hobby Hustle, where collecting passion and business collide. Thanks so much.
Hobby Hustle is brought to you by Collector Creative. If you're a collectible brand or company looking for help with marketing, branding, design, or development, head over to collectorcreative.com and drop Zach a line. We'll be back next week. In the meantime, connect with us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at collector_creative. And be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'll see you next time on Hobby Hustle, where collecting passion and business collide.